So, recently, I've been feeling very nostalgic and decided to watch some old TV shows I used to enjoy as a kid. One show which has absolutely stood the test of time is Recess, an old cartoon from the late 90s which centres around a group of playground dwellers set in the fictional school Third Street. I had such a blast with this rewatch that I decided I wanted to talk about the top 10 episodes of the whole show. Here we go. So, in this episode, the gang are all preparing for parents' night. They're keen to show their folks around the classroom and to show off all their projects. Well, all of them apart from Spinelli, who isn't even bringing her parents. This is a recurring theme for all the past parents' nights, where she has just refused to bring her parents. This sparks the gang's interests, and it's understandable why. They set these two up to be an intriguing mystery within this plot. They speculate and guess what's up with them. I think the failed attempts to break into Spinelli's house to meet them is very entertaining. While I think it's partially extreme, I can understand why they were so desperate to learn about why she won't bring them. I also enjoyed the quick little sections dedicated to the various parent and kid dynamics. Their designs were very fun, while it added a lot of good world building for the series as well. This one has a slightly grittier edge as Spinelli coerces a rough couple she met at a petrol station to pretend to be her parents. It's kind of wacky, and I love their interactions with Miss Grotke. She is able to illustrate the lack of comfort from the scene just so well. They seem like criminals and are only interested in drinking. I just found it a bit surprising Disney allowed them to go this far with it, but hey, it works. And given how tough Spinelli is at face value, these parents fit her so well. I mean, on first watch, I could believe that they are her parents. The reveal that her actual parents are incredibly embarrassing and that's the reason she hid them works too. I think in a similar vein, it's very understandable why she is the way she is with parents like them. They're lovely people, but just very overbearing. Delivering on the secret agent joke at the end was very fun too. I think the theme of this one is really good. So, Lost Leader really explores TJ and his role as the team leader of the gang. This episode opens in the middle of a plan to steal their baseball bat back from the Ashleys. Only it falls apart. TJ makes a mistake on one of his calculations and as a result, Gus ends up breaking his leg. TJ blames himself for this. He failed to consider that Miss Finster would be early due to her being unable to follow her routine and ends up blaming himself for what happened. He can't focus anymore and loses interest in being the gang's leader. The whole thing is one massive message about confidence, but it's done really well and respectfully. TJ, who is normally the most outgoing and confident person on the playground, temporarily loses his ability to lead. He is so annoyed with himself and upset about failing the plan and hurting Gus that he has no interest in continuing anymore. He doesn't believe he can lead the team anymore. Each of them attempt to formulate plans to get the lucky bat back before the game against Lawson, but all come up short. I like how each of these smaller segments tied to each of their personalities. Gus calling in the military was one of my favourites from this list. Eventually, they purposely come up with a dumb plan and push TJ away. They know him so well at this point and realise he will get annoyed and take charge, which he does. I think this was quite a solid way for them to break him from his funk. I think this episode shows just how much of a tight unit the gang is by now. Part of me wishes this one was double length so they could really explore how lost they all are without each other, but for the 10-minute runtime, I think they told the story well. This was a fun episode, so the gang are tasked with coming up with book reports and decide the best course of action is to check out the school library before recess. It seems that the majority of the gang, bar Gretchen and possibly Mikey, have not been in there before. Whilst exploring amongst the shelves, Gus comes across the elusive library kid, a young girl who has avoided the classroom and playgrounds and spent her whole school life in the library. I don't blame her. If I were a kid, I would rather be in a library full of books than a boring classroom. She tells them she was initially excited about starting school and discussing her favourite books with her peers. This, however, came crashing down when she actually met her classmates, who were horrendous. I don't really think it helps that this show depicts young kids as literal savages. It's funny though. Since then, she has become very socially awkward and distant. This library is a sanctuary. Once again, I don't blame her at all. TJ and the gang convince her to go outside and to try recess. She immediately falls in love with it and goes absolutely berserk, not wanting to stop. Much like the library, this highlights her more obsessive side and her inability to remain in control of things that she is interested in. It is handled well and with a lot of thought here. Eventually, she gets stuck and starts panicking. In a desperate move to save her, Gretchen pulls the fire alarm, alerting everyone to come outside. The fire department saves her and she decides to head back into the library. It's here that we get one of the best interactions and character moments of the whole show as Gretchen reaches out to her and shows her it's all about moderation and finding a healthy balance. The episode ends on a humorous note as Spinelli's book project just goes on and on. She's in her absolute element reciting a gory war book to her class. It was just so great. Across the whole show, TJ and the rest of the kids of 3rd Street are known for saying a word, a sort of recurring catchphrase, womps. It's their own internal slang with a more powerful meaning than you would expect. So the introduction to this episode features a flashback where TJ and Vince were younger and got into trouble for swearing. It's there and then that they decide to come up with their own word. It's a clever way to illustrate their feelings about the risk of getting in trouble for swearing. For the most part, it goes quite well for the longest time, and it's effective, up until Miss Finster and Principal Prickly deem it as swearing and ban it across the whole school. For his use of the word, TJ receives harsh punishment and believes the whole thing womps. In a very clever way to normalise the use of the word, the way you would with any other word in the English language, TJ convinces the whole school to use the word in everyday language in a variety of different ways. To be fair, this was an absolutely incredibly good move on his part and seemed to be working quite well. I mean, Prickly was sweating. He couldn't put the whole school in detention. Before long, he is really out of his depth and gets the Board of Education involved. They enlist Mr. White, who plans on making an example out of TJ by going down on him like a ton of bricks. He calls to order a courtroom to assess how to handle the whole situation. He believes he needs to make an example out of TJ by getting him expelled as a means of cancelling out the word. It's really over the top and stupid, especially as womps really doesn't mean anything. I found the fight between Mr. White and the hippie guy who loves slang to be really amusing. It was a good embodiment of the social war and clash in belief. I think the ending to this episode with TJ's speech was the right way of doing things, and I liked how ridiculous the judge found the whole thing. This episode is such a good mockery of the use of language and is such a clever way to convey to children that swearing is wrong. TJ ends up breaking his upper arm while playing kickball against Lawson and his team. As a result, Miss Finster alerts him that he can no longer be outside until it is healed due to the school's policy. TJ is upset by this, and understandably so. Recess is his favourite thing in the world. Not to mention, Lawson is making fun of him for being stuck inside with the students the school calls pale kids. A group of socially awkward guys who enjoy being inside and engaging in nerdy activities. You know, the fun stuff, and I mean that genuinely. Board games or kickball? I wonder which I would choose. Lawson tells a story of a young kid called Sedgwick, who injured himself and had to stay inside years ago. He alludes to the fact that the same thing will happen to TJ. TJ, who is having none of it, enters the room and decides he will not engage in their activities and just ignore them until the 5 weeks are up and he can go back outside. During this time inside, he realises they have a lot in common, as the 4 of them love the same comics. He quickly bonds with them and ends up playing some of their games. I think this is good as it's essentially saying don't judge a book by its cover. I think TJ is arguably the best character for this plot as he is more open to this sort of thing compared to the rest of the kids. Once his arm is healed, the dude's taken to an amazing looking comic book store and tell him to select an item as a gift from them to him. It establishes their bond and highlights they will always be friends going forward now. TJ decides he wants to return the favour and invites them to play kickball with the gang. Lawson has an absolute ball mocking these losers and thrashing them at kickball. Eventually, Steve has had enough and challenges Lawson, which is fair. Lawson is being an absolute womps hole here. During their exchange, Steve reveals that he is Sedgwick and that he would rather spend time with the other pale kids than the likes of him. Lawson takes this really hard, and the episode ends. This one pushes the positive message of inclusivity and embracing different people, which is good. This is such a pleasantly cruel but equally clever episode of the show. So it opens with TJ returning to school. He was off for a week due to illness. Once he returns, he is shocked to learn that there is now an in-currency in order to do anything in the school. 5 or more stickers for a ball, 2 stickers to use the water fountain, there's even a 1 ticket toll to sit on the grass. It's capitalism in the playground, and all the kids are absolutely obsessed with these dumb monster stickers. TJ hits rock bottom. He's sad, alone, and not able to do anything he enjoys. Mikey attempts to help by lending out 1 of his stickers, but it's futile against the Marxism in the playground. This episode goes so whomping hard with this idea. It's a children's show, and they're using a harsh capital system as a vehicle for an episode. I love it. Don't get me wrong, it's so clever, but I'm just so shocked they did something like this. So TJ takes on work and starts collecting as many stickers as he can. At the beginning, it seems like a somewhat honest way to climb up the ladder. He soon feels exploited and starts using other children with sly deals that only really benefit him. I like how subtle this shift in characterization is for him at first, not just through actions but equally in change in hats. He literally sold his soul out for 5 stickers. He sells the good person he is in order to take control. It's effectively a much different TJ, a crueler one. But if you're going to have one character monopolize the whole playground, then it makes sense for it to be TJ. He is capable of this, but normally his heart would stand in the way. I found it quite fun to see this ruthless side to him. I mean, even his friends turn on him in the end, which is honestly fair. Eventually, the alien stamp things take over, like all fads do, and he is left with absolutely nothing. It's a harsh ending, but the whole plot is generally mean-spirited, so it makes sense. I think TJ should have had more of a repercussion, but it's still a good watch. So, like the title implies, this one is all about a substitute teacher. Miss Grotke is having an operation on her foot, so she'll be away from the classroom for the next week. The class are all really ecstatic about it. Like kids are, they see a substitute as a chance to joke around and get nothing done. This was so true, as I was that kid back in school. Especially if it was a teacher you disliked or a boring class, getting a sub in was the best. The gang will build up the hype in various ways they plan on goofing off. Well, up until Principal Prickly introduces the very charismatic and no-nonsense Mr. E, or Mystery. Now, the way they wrote Mr. E was so interesting to me, especially as an adult. At surface level, he just seems like he's cold and a bit of a womp. But I have such a greater appreciation for him watching it now. He clearly cares for the students. He takes an active interest in each of their personal projects and offers them help along the way. TJ is the one who has the biggest issues with him. He believes that Mr. White is the worst and has a serious issue with his authority. He challenges him along the way and gets annoyed when no one else shares the sentiment that there's anything wrong. I mean, Vince is sold almost immediately with the physical education and the encouragement from him. He and TJ continue to clash. TJ refuses to engage with his classes and isn't progressing with his personal project. He doesn't even seem to care about any repercussion for that decision. Eventually, TJ does hand in a project, but this seems to be to spite him more than anything. In arguably the most famous scene of the whole show, TJ presents a get well card for Miss Grotke and tries to remind the class that she is gone. Everyone is really impressed, especially Mr. E, who offers constructive feedback to TJ. The pair end on much better terms and TJ realizes that Mr. E is actually a really solid teacher. So, this is also quite a harsh plot, but done effectively. So, the Education Board wants to improve grades across the system and decides the best way to do that is to restrict children from having recreational time. The president decides to eliminate recess in an attempt to boost grades, despite the fact that the grades in 3rd Street all seem to be fine, really good in fact. They decide to make 3rd Street the pilot school for this new system. On top of a lack of recess, the students are forced into daily testing so the board can closely monitor whether grades are improving or not. In general, this seems like a very mean idea, and very soon the kids' brains wind up fried. I like how this episode illustrates that the kids are all really suffering. There's many close-ups and smaller interactions where the kids fail to be social with each other and even fail to grasp what's going on. In addition, the visuals change alongside the kids. All the colour is gone from the world and it just feels so bleak. It was an incredibly effective way to show off the change. This whole idea is barbaric. It's not only the kids that are being affected, but the teachers too, which is a nice detail to include. If this type of thing were to happen, then of course it would affect the mental health of everyone involved. However, I found the interactions between Miss Finster and Miss Lemon to be really amusing. It's just short segments of them getting on each other's nerves, but it's so funny. The board realised they made a huge mistake when all the test scores begin to plummet and decide to reinstate recess. They're so smart that they even redefine it. That's how bright Mr. President and the aide are. Such a success. Okay, this is like my favourite episode of the whole show. It's just so heartwarming and good. Also, Miss Finster is like my favourite character from the whole show. I do plan on doing a video on her sometime soon as well. So, Spinelli's parents want to go away for the weekend to visit her grandmother and celebrate with her, but can't as they're unable to find a babysitter to watch her. Miss Finster, who is old friends with Spinelli's grandmother, volunteers to babysit her so the parents can go away. Once the gang learn this, they are all horrified on her behalf. Spinelli ambivalently agrees to leave with Miss Finster, and from the second they get into her car, they clash. Spinelli wants to listen to new songs, whereas Muriel wants to listen to the classic songs. She happily starts singing a song, and to be fair, it sounds like quite a decent tune. I do wish it was real. Spinelli struggles to adapt to this new environment. While Miss Finster really doesn't do anything wrong, it's just not really the place a child will enjoy. Her home, food choices, soap operas, and activities are fun and enjoyable for the elderly, like Muriel, but Spinelli just isn't connecting with it. Which is fair. I think most people would struggle in that situation. It is clear that Muriel is really trying to be kind to Spinelli and give her a good weekend. In her head, it's all fun. I think this does so much character development for Muriel. It's just so great to see. She overhears Spinelli's phone call with TJ, where she refers to Muriel as boring. She reflects on this and decides to make a change. After Spinelli references a photo of her dancing with her grandmother, Muriel throws them a luau. They dance and have a wonderful time. Once they arrive back at school, Muriel references an incredible Sunday they had together, but reminds her that the dynamic has to shift back once she gets out of the car. I love this episode. Miss Finster is an authoritarian figure, but she is in no way a villain. I think this episode does such a phenomenal job of humanising her. We as the audience see a completely different side to her, and it just adds so much to the show. So, here we are, the best episode of Recess in my opinion. Flex your creativity. Imagine this. A box. 4 painted lines on the ground. Quite the scary thought, right? Well, all jokes aside, yes it is. It's kind of perfect psychological torture. It's also an incredibly solid episode of Recess. So, Miss Finster, who repeatedly tries to punish the children and restore order to the playground, is annoyed that TJ and the other kids repeatedly ignore her punishments and laugh them off like they're nothing. She's fed up, which is honestly fair. After TJ unplugs the freezer so he and the dudes can get ice cream, Finster punishes him by making him have a timeout stood against the wall. He disregards this, and his friends join him. They joke and banter. This pushes her to make a drastic change. She creates the box, a drawn 4-line image on the tarmac. Students will have to spend time isolated away from their peers and enjoyment during recess. All they will have to occupy themselves is their thoughts. It's essentially solitary confinement. It's kind of the perfect punishment for the likes of TJ, who, unsurprisingly, is the first to experience it. He really struggles in the box. He sees it as a cage from which there's no escape. I particularly liked the animation of it becoming a square hole in the ground. It's quite a terrifying notion for a child. The 10-minute allocated time feeling like eternity. It's enough to break TJ. He is terrified into submission and becomes subservient to everything Miss Finster says. It's actually quite cruel. It definitely womps. TJ struggles to function, so the gang force him to conquer his fear by getting him thrown back into the box. Once TJ is able to see the box for what it literally is, just some lines in the ground that can be passed at any point, he is able to snap back to form. I just think this episode is such a good exploration of psychological fear. It's very basic, but very effective. It's very good. It was such a lot of fun putting this list together. It wasn't an easy task, as there is just so many great episodes of this show. What did you think of my list? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video and would like to stay up to date, then please hit that like button and subscribe. Right, I've got some other projects to work on. I'll catch you all soon.